Okay. So we're recording probably what's going to end up being a second part of the video. But these are the generations from me, all the way back to my ancestors in Modestone on the Isle of Wight, to Whippingham on the Isle of Wight, and back to Shropshire. So first generation is me. I am one of 10 boys and 2 girls in my family. And I am number 10 in line. I have 2 younger brothers. Everybody else is older than me. So if you're using this for a reference in the future to your genealogy, understand that we all go in a line, of 12. And I am the third to the youngest, number 10 of 12. My father's name was Ralph Cheek. His wife was Vivian Parker. Dad's father was George Thomas Cheek, whose wife was Fanny Sanders. They're my dad's mom and dad. Grandfather was Preston Van Diver Jr. and Lucindy Jane Reed. Preston Van Diver Jr.'s father was Preston Van Diver Sr., and Martha Roper was his mother. Roland Cheek married Henrietta Huldah Thurman, and he is the next in line. His father was William Martin Cheek, who was a Revolutionary War soldier, to give you an idea how many generations. My grandfather was born in 1880. My grandmother was born in 1885. My mom and dad were born in 1930 and 1931. I was born in 1969. So I'm only 7 generations from the Revolutionary War. All right. William Martin Cheek's father was James, whose wife was Anne Mayo. Anne Mayo is known, her family are the Mayo Clinic Mayos. Richard Cheek is the next one. He married Jane Randolph. Jane Randolph is the daughter of Colonel William Randolph. John Cheek married Senior Dyer, and what's interesting, I did a genealogy of the Dyer family, and the Dyer family are descended from a Cheek line, from probably one of Sir John Cheek's aunts. Possibly one of his, well, I don't think it's his sister. I think it's one of his aunts. But anyway, so John Cheek married Senior Dyer, who was actually a Cheek descendant. Anthony Cheek, who is my first generation in Virginia in the United States, married Deborah Denise Elzoth. Elzoth is a name from Norway or from the north, but could have been in England, and I haven't found her ancestors yet. Sir Thomas Cheek is attributed as being his father, and the reason why we know this is in the Plantagenet roll of the Blood Royals. He is listed as Sir Thomas Cheek's son. The timing's right. He lives on the property that was allocated to Henry Cheek and his brother Hatton, who was Thomas Cheek's father, in Virginia, and they were both participants in the Virginia colony and the formation of that. So, Sir Thomas and Essex Rich. Essex Rich was the sister of Baron Rich, and the daughter of the Riches. Sir Henry Cheek, who married Frances Radcliffe, who was also from a prominent family. Sir John Cheek, who married Mary Hill. She was the daughter of the wine sergeant of the wine cellar of Henry VIII. Peter Cheek, who married Agnes Duffield. This is now going to the first generation off the Isle of Wight, but living in the area of Oxford, because he taught at Oxford. Sir John Cheek also taught at Oxford. He also owned an inn, Peter Cheek, and got into a little trouble. But Peter Cheek's dad was Robert Cheek, who married Lady Bramshot on the Isle of Wight. These are the Cheeks that own Modestone Manor. John Cheek II married Anne de Glamorgan. The Glamorgans were descended from nobles that were given kingship of the Isle of Man as a sort of like a flattery almost, because back in the day the Isle of Man was actually its separate entity, as was the Isle of Wight. John Cheek I married Lady Tremaine. I have matches on my DNA to the Tremaine family. I'm sure this is where it's coming from. Edward Cheek, the next person, married Lady Trevanion. Richard Cheek, or De Chekenhull, because this is about the time that they dropped the Hull off their name, married Lady Montacute, who was Montague. That's a very famous English name. The next ancestor was purportedly Adam De Chekenhull, or Adam Cheek. He's kind of a missing link in here, but I found it in a document, and it seems like he's the next ancestor back. He's kind of a missing person, but I'm pretty sure he fits. John De Chekenhull, whose wife was Beatrice, is in documents everywhere on the Isle of Wight for, making donations to the church and selling properties. He's the one that sold, or actually gave, Wolfston to one of his female cousins. Wolfston was in Southampton. So Hugh De Chekenhull, who is the sheriff of the Isle of Whippingham, his wife's name was Roberge, and we find that in documents. He was the sheriff of Whippingham in 1270. He was born, I got for the post-mortem from his dad, because they give the time of his age at the time during the king's reign, that he was born in 1254 and he died in 1317. John De Chekenhull, his grandson, was 30 in 1317. So he must have been born in 1287. Alan was Hugh's father. And he was a missing link, because I thought that Hugh was descended directly from Robert De Chekenhull. I thought Robert was his father. But then I found a post-mortem where at age 7, his father gave him Wolfston. And Wolfston is one of the properties that Hugh inherited. Hugh inherited Wolfston, he inherited Chekenhull, and he inherited Osborne. Osborne he actually was given Osborne by the king at the time, because he loaned some arrowmen to fight in a battle, and that was his reward. He was also given the sheriffship of Whippingham. So Alan De Chekenhull gave Wolfston to Hugh at 7 years of age, and Robert De Chekenhull, whose mother is Cecilia, is listed in a document where he immersed, it was for embladement or immersement. Moor Forest is right there it doesn't exist anymore. They plowed it over and made it farmland, but it was a pretty large forest at the time. And it was the king's hunting ground. So what they did is they farmed accidentally or intentionally on the king's land, and they were fined for it. And that was in 1209. We don't know how old he was in 1209, but we know that he's apparently the father of Alan and the grandfather of Hugh. And Hugh inherits from Alan, and Hugh inherits from Robert, and Hugh gets his own stuff. So right there, All Saints Church, Chekenhull, I am 25 generations directly back to Robert De Chekenhull, or De Chekenhull, which is where we got the Cheek name, because they dropped the end off. Now, Robert De Chekenhull, according to not just visitations by people that maintained the coat of arms and maintained who you were descended from, but also from heraldry, which is the same thing, more or less. He, according to the Herald, is a descendant of William De Bouville. William De Bouville came in 1066. I think I said this at the beginning of the video. But another William, who was his ancestor, very soon after married a Gwarnock heiress. And Gwarnock is in Cornwall, which is close to where Shropshire is. It's on the Welsh borders. There are a lot of castles in this area, because the new coming ups were trying to defend their property and protect it from the Welsh, who were Britannic. And they were a mixture of Norman, who were Viking, and Anglo-Saxon, potentially married to Britannic. So, but the Gwarnock Princess, I went through her genealogy and William's genealogy, who I assume to be the son or grandson of William de Bouville. Her family name was spelled Truelthick, which with the W being pronounced as a V was Trevedic. And if you know the name Trevedic, or if you've ever heard it, a Trevedic was the first person to invent the steam engine. Very, very smart people, but they were Cornish. And then I have people, the Glamorgans come from, I want to say, Cornwall, Wales, which are very close to each other. Other members of the family are descended from people that lived in that area, and Chekenhull is right across the border in Shropshire, pretty close to the Welsh borders, where there was a lot of fighting and conflict. So, long story short, that's 25 generations to 1209. And that is my direct Cheek ancestor and my ancestor, William De Bouville, apparently son of Saxe Swallow, brother of Humphrey, descended from the Harcourt family being descended from Bernard the Dane, who was the brother-in-law of Rollo. They married two sisters and had descendants, and came to Normandy and took over, and then the King of France at the time gave them Normandy as a duchy to pacify them and placate them, to keep them from invading the rest of France and taking it over, which worked, except they invaded England. So that's how it all went down. But anyway, Bernard the Dane's mother was a Holstien Saxon Princess, and her father's line can be traced male to male in documents all the way back in Roman times to about 40 BC. So, while I don't know if I'm exactly descended from Bernard male to male, it's a possibility. I'll have to do a lot more research over time. Maybe new things will come up. I do have genetic matches that tend to indicate that I should be of Norman background. I should be a Viking background, where some wide DNA matches. For instance, I have a wide DNA match often to people who have the last name Lesser, which is from the sire de Bouville Evelyn, which is in France. And the sire de Bouville Evelyn was actually Sassuolo, and also probably William, one of the Williams in that line. So that's the way it goes. Anyway, thanks for watching. Lauren Cheek at Laurencopia. For my nephews, you're welcome to voyeur in.